The student case study that I chose was the European heat wave that took place in 2003. So this heat wave took place over Europe, and it was caused by an anticyclone that stationed itself mainly above the western part of Europe. And an anticyclone is when a system of winds rotate around a center of high pressure, and in this case it would be going clockwise since it took place in the northern hemisphere. And this lasted from about June to mid-August. The temperature was 20 to 30% above average. There's also not a lot of heat waves that usually take place in Europe, but this particular heat wave caused one of the hottest summers on record in Europe at that time. So the picture on the left that is showing you kind of like a bird's eye view of what an anticyclone looks like in real life. And then on the right is just showing you just kind of how hot the temperatures got during this time. So at one point it was about 105 in Europe and France, and that's just crazy. And then these pictures kind of go into more detail about what exactly anticyclones are and kind of how they move. So the one on the left is just showing you the difference between the northern and the southern hemisphere. One goes clockwise, one goes counterclockwise, obviously. And then the one on the bottom is just showing you a little bit more detail. It's just showing you kind of like a little bit more about the isobars and stuff like that. So the environmental effects of this problem, the anticyclone kind of prevented precipitation from happening. So this caused a drought that France was not prepared for. The Alpine glacier shrank about 10% over the summer, along with thawing in the mountains that caused rock slides. So on the right is a picture of the Alpine glacier in 1996 and in 2009. And you can just see the difference between the two of the glacier, how much it's shrank back in that about 10, 13-year span. There was also lots of forest fires that kind of raged across Western Europe that were fueled by the weakened trees and the dry underbrush. And on the left is obviously a picture of that. So if you look at the social and economic side of it, there was at least 35,000 people who had died from this heat wave. And this heat wave can cause many serious problems for the elderly and the very young and the ill. And so some health risks that can lead to death include heat stroke, dehydration, sunburn, air pollution, and drowning. And I just included some pictures about heat stroke and dehydration, kind of what to look for and how to help prevent and help yourself. So there's also issues that took place like economically. So the harvest was affected, the fodder and the grain production had declined, which elevated the cost of living of livestock farmers. So in the picture shown is just showing you what fodder is. And so fodder is used to actually feed the livestock, which would explain why there was an increase in livestock farmers, because they had to then just outsource their food from somewhere else. There was also the nuclear power facility had to be shut down in France because of the low water levels, and this took place just when there was a high demand for electricity. And now, since the heat wave, Europe has put a lot more effective health responses into place to help kind of limit the number of deaths that may be happening. However, seeing as this is more of a climate change problem, Europe is also trying to help kind of counteract that issue. They're working hard to cut down on the greenhouse gas emissions. Their goal is to have for 20% of total energy to come from renewable energy, was to cut down the greenhouse emission by the same amount by about, I think, 2030 it was. They have long-term goals as well, and this is to cut down their emissions by 85 to 90% and compared back to levels back in 1990. They also have more regulations that are being put into place to help keep Europe on track, and it also involves using less water and adapting building regulations along with a few other things. And if you look at the image on the right, it's just telling you more about reusable or renewable energy sources that we can use to help fuel what is needed to help keep us going. And so this just kind of go into a little bit of detail, just to kind of remind you of what those sources can be. It's like solar power, hydroelectric power, wind power, all those kind of things that can help you cut down on using stuff that would emit greenhouse gases. And yeah.